Episode 14, Mine Explorers. Back with Crystal and I in the studio.
Having a great time.
Yeah, and today we want to talk about something that isn't talked about a lot in the mining industry, and that is industrial minerals.
Industrial minerals, we love them.
Yep.
And they're everywhere.
They are. They make up everything. And a lot of the people who manufacture products use industrial minerals, and a lot of the industrial minerals are mined by manufacturing companies that don't really consider themselves mining companies. So it's kind of a hidden segment of the industry.
Yeah, it is interesting. I was on Mineralocity yesterday and kind of looking at all of the industrial minerals around. And we have 400 industrial mines and facilities in the U.S.
Wow.
So over 300 of those are surface. There's 3 underground, and then about 55 are facilities.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I thought so.
What falls under the facilities category?
I think that means they're processing minerals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense, yeah. Mm-hmm. Like a mill. Yeah.
Yep. Well, and I'd have to look into that further, but like if you zoom in, you can see like, okay, it looks like they're maybe mining it and then they're processing something.
So, what's an industrial mineral?
Industrial mineral is a non-metallic commodity that is used in, hold on.
Well, I don't need an official definition.
Well, it's important to know because there's a difference between the minerals that we usually see, like the base metals, the critical minerals, all that kind of fun stuff. But the industrial minerals are mined for their commercial value. So we're talking like big bulk minerals.
Yeah, because they become part of something bigger.
Right.
Like a gold bar can be the end product, whereas industrial minerals all become part of something else.
Right. So like you mine gypsum, and then it becomes wallboard, and you mine bentonite, and that can become. I mean, they call it the clay of 1,000 uses, right? So a lot of times bentonite ends up being drilling mud, or can be, face masks. You see that in kitty litter. And so it's like, yeah, mining it, they process it oftentimes nearby, and then the end product is something else.
And who's mining this stuff?
Well, like you said, manufacturing companies, most of the time.
Okay. Interesting.
Most of the time. I thought so too.
Yeah, they're interesting because it's a key part of the mining industry, and it's really critical, similar to construction aggregates that we talked about a lot. And I think a lot of construction aggregate companies consider themselves part of the construction industry,
right,
or part of infrastructure, which they are very much, but they're also part of the mining industry, and the biggest part by employment, by revenues, things like that in the United States. And probably internationally as well. I mean, there's billions of dollars of aggregates that are produced every year in the world.
Right. Well, it's used everywhere. It's used in almost every application.
Yeah, and then there's the industrial minerals, which are used in everything else. So all sorts of products, from makeup to pharmaceuticals to construction materials to space applications.
Everything.
Yeah. Interesting.
Almost everything.
Yeah, there's fewer mines, but they're super specialized in what they produce. So like bentonite clays. So there's clay is part of soil globally. I mean, to a small degree in some places and to a huge degree in other places. But special clays are pretty rare. They can actually be used for kaolin or bentonite and things like that. It's
right.
Pretty interesting.
Right. Yeah, it's cool because, I mean, with these commodities, they're always around. They're always needed. There's, a million different applications, and it's different from what you see with like gold, right? Like gold will get excited. People will invest a lot into gold, and then the price will drop, and then it'll kind of dry out. But with the industrials, it's like slow and steady.
Yeah, for the most part. I've seen a couple little booms in industrial minerals, like
Well,
barite, for example.
right.
When there's a lot of drilling going on.
Right.
Barite will really pop up, or like frac sand.
Yep.
Has
seen its boom and bust days sure.
For sure.
But those are very specific applications, though, because frac sand, you need to have a very specific type of sand.
Right.
Just like glass making, it's a specific type of sand. Even, processors use a specific type of silica. So it's...
Yeah, silica comes in all varieties.
It does,
There's purities, too. So, like, super ultra pure silica is used to make like microchips and things like that. And there's a couple mines here in the United States that are the only mines pure enough to make silica. They're in North Carolina. They can make the crucibles to make microchips. So it's ultra pure. And there's only one source on the planet that's been identified. There's probably more if you really got out and looked, but it's a small volume, super high importance commodity. So like when the hurricanes came through and wiped it out, those mines got shut down for a little bit, and there was a bunch of concern about the potential for global microchip manufacturing to shut down.
Right. Yeah, that like baffles me that there's only one mine in the world.
When you get into industrial minerals, that's pretty common.
Yeah.
So like beryllium, we talked about beryllium. There's one mine here in the United States that mines and processes beryllium. It's right here in Utah.
In Utah, yeah.
Yeah, and there's clays, like there's specific mines that produce certain types of clays, and it's the only place where they're produced.
Yep.
So that's pretty common actually to have one source, but for such a key application, like microchips run everything now. Mm-hmm. They run your cell phone, the grid, power plants, cars, everything. And so having all that rely on literally two relatively low production mines in North Carolina.
And then one processing facility who makes them in Taiwan.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah.
It is wild how when you start thinking about the supply chain, it's actually quite fragile.
Yep.
Like it doesn't take much. It could be, even just natural events that happen that could wipe out an entire subproduct.
Yeah, for sure.
Which with the product of that nature would really just kind of put the world at a standstill for a moment.
Yeah, definitely.
Until we figured it out again. But
well, and the interesting thing is with that is like, yes, there's only a few sources and the supply chain's really fragile, but it's such a high value supply chain that I think we could adapt pretty quickly. Like, I was thinking about it. What if, when those two mines shut down during the hurricane, I thought, what if one of those companies called us Burgess and said, we have an unlimited budget. You need to find us another source of this material right now. Drop everything and find it.
An extremely high purity silica.
Yeah, and I went through an exercise kind of mentally, like, what would we do? What would that look like? Because like, if it's super critical like that, and we need a source tomorrow, and we had all the resources, what would we do? And I was thinking about it like, well, first things first, we'd map that formation out and go, okay, where is it at that's not in an area that's destroyed?
Right.
And then, who do we know? Get all the drilling companies, get all the landmen we know out negotiating with the landowners.
Yeah,
to get
at that point, you'd hope it's on private property.
So we can drill. Yeah, well, fortunately, North Carolina, that's not an issue, but you need to really mobilize a lot of people really quickly. But being such a high value product, like, I think you could find another source pretty quickly, but you'd have to do a lot of work.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you'd have to do an intensive desktop study. But I mean, fortunately, with the Mineralocity platform and the one that we use internally, like, we would have a head start.
Right.
Let's just say that.
Yeah, we'd have a head start for sure. We could generate targets to get boots on the ground within a day. and actually get people out there looking around.
Yeah, we
searching
probably
for
could.
outcrops and everything.
Yeah,
And then,
yeah. Find what the geological makeup is, and then find areas that are very similar to that, and then get people on a plane and go looking.
Yep.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, another thing that I found very interesting with the industrial minerals is just the processing, because like we deal with the critical, like the base minerals and all that. And like rare earths, for example, like we can mine them all day long, but we can only process them to a certain point, and then we have to ship them out. We have to export them. But with the industrials, for the most part, we can process them here on site.
And usually it's on site or close, right?
Or close, and it's very minimal. It's just a matter of like screening, shaking things out, and crushing or whatever the case may be, depending on the commodity. So
yeah, generally, yeah. I mean, like you think about silica sands we were talking about.
Yeah.
You look at a plant, like a frac sand plant or a plant that makes glass sand, and it looks super complicated. There's conveyor belts running everywhere and everything. But really, it can be broken down to really simple components. So washing, screening, drying.
Yep. Exactly.
And that's about it. And then part of the washing, there's variations there. Attrition, scrubbing, different types of washing, different types of classifying. And then screening is screening, right? And then ultimately, like, you have to dry it. And that's it. Like, it's pretty simple. There's not a bunch of processes in between where you're using a bunch of chemicals and
there's no leach pads. There's huge mills. Well, maybe I guess some mills.
I mean, if you're crushing like lump silica, like actual quartz veins and things, then there's definitely crushing involved. But then you're, crushing, washing, screening, drying.
Right.
So
it's a lot quicker process to get to the end product.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, with industrial minerals, and they're bulk commodities, and they go generally right to the manufacturing, wherever they're being used. Whether it's bentonite being packed into bags to go be mixed into drilling fluid, or being put in super sacks to go to the makeup face mask company, or pharmaceutical grade that's going to the pharmaceuticals to
be put into pills. These fillers.
But it's that's pretty simple too, because they're crushing it, drying, washing, just depending on the quality.
I mean, I guess the biggest challenge there would just be ensuring that the grades are consistent.
Yep, quality control and doing good testing up front.
Yep.
Making sure your mine's planned out. And
always doing good testing up front. We've seen that time and time again. You always want to do your due diligence, your testing up front before you start mining, because that will save you so much time and effort in the long run.
And we see that a lot in metals and especially big metals projects. Like, the amount of work put in up front is enormous. And then it kind of declines all the way down to like construction aggregates, where they're like, there's sand next door, so there's sand here, let's mine it.
Right.
And that works a lot of the time because it is a simple commodity, but it doesn't really bypass the need to do testing and mine planning and all that stuff.
Right. Well, the grades do change.
The money you pay up front pays off in the end. Yeah. But it kind of declines. So the industrials kind of fall somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll go start without a lot of planning, and other times they'll do a lot.
Yep. So we tend to.
But we see a lot of variation. So we worked on a bentonite project in Nevada for a number of years, and it was about 1,000 acres, but there was a pit area, a historic pit, that was around probably 40, 50 acres, and we sampled within that pit probably 50 different locations. Right. And we saw a huge variation in grades, which made it a really difficult deposit. Right. And probably the reason it is still not in production today, although it could be. But it varies from, I don't know the prices off the top of my head, but at the time when we were working on it about 10 years ago, the price was $200 a ton.
That was like the pharmaceutical grade.
Up to, yeah, like bulk, up to like $2 or $3 a pound for the pharmaceutical grade, all the way down to like just pond lining clay, which was like $30 a ton. And then like your $60 a ton in the middle for like making geosynthetic clay liners and things like that.
Right.
So yeah, the bentonite's pretty interesting. And the grade control there was really tricky.
Yeah, it was.
Because the key was like, we were looking at various factors. So like swell, how much does the clay swell? What's the viscosity? And then obviously the deleterious elements. So like, it's really critical, like for the pharmaceutical grade, can't have metals in it.
Right.
Can't have iron and heavy metals and things like that. And then for some of the clay, like for foundries and things like that, you actually wanted a little bit of iron content. And so there's this huge variation across this area, which is pretty interesting. And you'll see that in some industrials, which makes them all kind of specialized.
For sure. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you still have to do your own testing, make sure that you're getting the right quality for the right product that you are looking to sell or create. Yeah.
So you said in the beginning that you love industrial minerals. So explain that. Why do you love them?
I think industrial minerals are I love the big boring commodities, let's just say that. So gold, silver, antimony, uranium, those are exciting. Those are fun to discover, fun to talk about. But it's the construction aggregates, the industrial minerals that stick around for a bit. That's why I like them, especially from a business perspective. And they're a lot more simple to find, sample, write reports on, that sort of thing. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in the industrial space, especially in the US. They're relatively straightforward to permit. You don't have to, you still have to follow all of the regulations, of course, but for the most part, you can do a couple holes and start testing.
Yeah, and especially when a manufacturing facility is built along with an industrial minerals mine, they generally are targeting like a 50+ year mine life.
Right.
Like they're looking for a really long term, it's like building a cement plant, right?
Yep.
You're looking for a really long term supply. You're going to stay there a long time.
Well, and these are the type of mines too that you could see a mine go into production after a couple of years of exploration.
Right.
Like these ones turn over really quick. Whereas there's been some gold programs that we've been working on for the last 10, 15 years that really haven't moved much. Like they've done a lot of drilling. They've sent out a lot of reports. Their stock has fluctuated.
Right.
But they're essentially still in the same spot in exploration. Whereas like the industrial minerals, we could see a plant get started in the next 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah, depending on the jurisdiction for sure. And
absolutely.
Yeah, they just don't tend to attract as much negative attention either. Because they're needed. Like we need gypsum for drywall. Like we need phosphate for fertilizer. And we need potash. Yeah, and those, it was good to see some of those included in the Fast 41 that we talked about last week.
Yeah, there was a couple of phosphate mines that are getting the fast track. So we'll
phosphate
keep
and
an eye on
then
those.
Potash, yeah. So that's good, high grade stuff. So
yep, high grade and needed. Cool.
Yeah, when you cook dinner tonight or you sleep in your nice warm bed, thank industrial minerals.
That's right.
Cool, and we'll see you next week. Working on lining up, got a couple special guests potentially, and might even do an episode on the road at a mine. So stay tuned. And this is Skaboosh again. He's back. We haven't seen him since, it's been 10 episodes since Skaboosh was there.
Hi, Skaboosh.
We're talking about tariffs and 2 cats. And now we have way more tariffs, but we still have 2 cats. So we'll probably have to do another episode on tariffs again because it's gotten crazy. But it's gotten so crazy and there's so much uncertainty that I feel like talking about it's just a lot of hot air because nobody really knows what's going to happen.
It'd be interesting to see if there's any new mines going into exploration because of tariffs. And the reason I say that is because we had a client yesterday who called us to look at a new deposit because they're like, hey, we're running out of the material that we're currently mining, and they have a processing plant, and so they want to essentially do the same thing in a new location. They're like, we don't want to import any of this material because with the new tariffs coming online, it's going to essentially put them out of business.
Right.
So now we're like fast tracking this project to see like, okay, well,
can we find a domestic supply?
Can we find a domestic supply? And we're also looking at infrastructure too, because they want to put in a plant, which means we got to see their rail, power, diesel,
land, water,
yeah, all of that. And they're in California, so it's like, ooh, we will do our best.
Well, there's a lot of industrial mines in California.
There are.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's some good lime deposits. There's some specialty clays.
Yeah, I have a map for you to show
yeah.
in this episode that has all the industrial minerals pulled from Mineralosity that are mapped out. And there's a lot. There is a lot in California.
Yeah.
Out on the West Coast.
Yeah, I mean, there's California, and there's the West Coast, and there's all the population along the coast. Mm-hmm. And then there's all the inland California, and there's that whole California desert, which has been a hotbed of industrial mineral production forever.
I mean, they were mining borax in Death Valley in the teens in, the late 1800s.
Yep.
It's the 21 mule car.
The 21 mule team, yeah.
Mule team.
21 mules, yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool place.
Anyway,
all right.
Exciting stuff.
Till next time.
Stay tuned.